year?
Well,
what's the year looking like for Israel and for Jews in the world?
I think for Jews generally, the year isn't looking much better than it did last year. To be honest, sadly, we started off with the most horrendous story out of Tel Aviv, which has pretty much died off in the eyes of most of the world's media, except of course our own Jewish media, because the hunt for the killer continues, and whether there are wider ramifications for this story, we're yet to fully understand. But that really was a horrible start.
It really was, yes.
And I can certainly see that many of the world events are going to spill over into our own lives, not least of which the Saudis' execution and the Iranian response. So
yes, I think that has certainly really put a new edge to tensions across the Middle East, and the Sunni-Shia split now is probably as bad as it's been over the last decade.
Well, the story for me is also that people are genuinely now picking sides. People being countries. We've got with Saudi, we've got Sudan, Bahrain classically, but we've also got a very large, our own Southeast Asian fraternity are all effectively sitting on that Sunni side of Islam, and we're now seeing that the world very clearly acknowledging that Iran is the Shia, is the heart and soul of Shia, and what with Iraq also now being very much a Shia
country,
Shia country.
Well.
We're seeing that split very clearly, which will affect us in the West as to who
it will affect us in the West. But I think probably the most dangerous situation is the spillover, the possibility of spillover into Israel. We've already seen, as I've just read out before in the news, we've already seen trouble in across the border from Lebanon, that Hezbollah has already targeted Israel. And we've seen, of course, Israel become active in some areas in Syria, mainly to try and stop the flow of munitions to Hezbollah.
Anything that Israel does is about Israel, and I think the world needs to appreciate that we're looking after our own security first and foremost.
We have to.
If they don't appreciate the fact that we will, and we undoubtedly will, take all sorts of steps to take out the leaders of what are regarded as terrorist organisations, then the world's going to be in for continuing surprises through 2016, because I have no doubt that that's where Israel's security forces are working at their best when they go into other areas and take out the leaders that will see the worst of us.
Yeah.
So I wish it was a happy new year on that level. I mean, there are certainly reasons to be cheerful about being Jewish and being a great supporter of Israel. But I think in addition to that, you mentioned also in the news the Amiram Ben Uliel's
case.
Yes. And clearly that's one of the ones that tears at my heart, because this is a guy who doesn't recognise the state of Israel, from a family and from a community that occupies parts of Israel but doesn't recognise it as a state.
It's actually very interesting. They say that a lot of this group, and it's only a small group, maybe 100 or two, a couple of hundred people, all young. They seem all to be the sort of disaffected youth that we always talk about when we talk about who's an extremist. And that, I mean, in Ben Uliel's case, here's a guy who grew up in Israel, actually, and apparently this is quite typical of this group, and left home young. He's only 21 and he's already married, which is early these days for us. But they live in these hilltop, they call them the hilltop youth, they live in these hilltop outposts. So they're clearly, even under Israeli law, if we're talking about settlements, under Israeli law, these hilltop groups are regarded as illegal. And the guys there have got a really scary ideology. It's scary because it doesn't recognise the state of Israel as a state of Israel. It doesn't believe that the government and the forces of Israel are there to protect the Jewish people, the residents of Israel. And they actually want to reconstitute a Judaic kingdom in Judea Samaria.
This has a lot of similarities with the Shia philosophy, the revolutionary Islam, revolutionary Judaism.
Yeah, that's what's so scary about it. I think the other thing is, well, two things that really get me. One is the disregard for the life of an enemy, because I mean, whoever were the perpetrators will be proved to be the perpetrators.
And this is an alleged
of the murder in Duma. The point is, they went out seeking to take life, and that is a fundamental flaw. And I really don't understand how religious Jews, people wearing skull caps and payers and tzitzit and all of this can equate this with Jewish values. It's just so foreign to any Jewish value.
Well, let's as you've just said, that it is a very small minority of the whole Jewish community, but it is one of the worst sides of our community. That it'll be the worst side of our community that the world will see. I would just say to some of your listeners and to you as well, that there is within our own community a wish to hide this story. They don't want us to talk about it. They don't want it publicised. I have the opposite view, because I feel that unless we ourselves flush out this community and show them to be what they are, which effectively is a form of terrorism. I would certainly say that they need to be run out of those hills, and if it means actually forcing people to take sides in our own country, in our own community, then let's do that, because this is not doing their cause any justice either. If they genuinely have a religious question here, then talk about it on a religious basis.
Yes.
But you'll find nothing in the Torah that talks about taking life in this way. They may well have used some areas
of Talmud, interpretation, maybe.
Yeah, which again is a Shia philosophy as well. They'll use the language to their best means. We are not going to accept it, and most certainly if we see that spreading out from Israel into the wider Jewish community, that would be a horrific thing to
Well, of course, this is not new. I mean, 20 years ago, an Israeli Prime Minister was assassinated by somebody purporting absolutely the same type of ideology, and it's just. But the real trouble is that I see a tremendous, unfortunately, parallel between our community here in Australia and safe Australia and the Muslim community, because every time there's a terrorist act, we expect the Muslim community to come out with some sort of statement, and we fight amongst ourselves. Should we say that all of Islam is like this, or just this breakaway group? And there's a very sad parallel in this case.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always hesitant to criticise an individual, because in Australia we don't have a clear spokesperson for the Jewish community. There are a variety of executives that are established around the place. I actually think we do need a spokesperson. I've wrote last year about the opportunity that there should be to elect our own chief rabbi, a rabbi that will speak for the Jewish community, not just on the clerical side, but on the community side.
Well, then should it be a rabbi at all?
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean,
that's a difficulty as well. I know in England, the Commonwealth, we have a chief rabbi, and we've had some outstanding chief rabbis. Lord Sachs, for instance, was an outstanding chief rabbi, and he spoke so eloquently about issues, including political issues like this.
He was a special character, a special case. The current chief rabbi, Rabbi Mervis, does as well, but he's too remote from Australasia to make any real
yes, I think that Commonwealth link has disappeared almost.
The problem we have is that the wider community doesn't recognise they understand the word rabbi. They don't understand the leader of the Jewish executive of wherever, Victoria or New South Wales. They don't appreciate that. And what we're looking for, in my opinion, in 2016 and going forward, is leadership from the core of the Jewish community.
Of course, some people will say, well, we've got that. We've got the ECAJ, the Executive Council of Australian Juries.
I was going to say, if you know exactly what it stands for.
Exactly.
You might be one of the few listening that do, but I'm certainly not going to attack them or any of the other spokes parties, because effectively that's all we have got at the moment.
Well, I think one of the problems is actually that's not all that we have. That we have a whole lot of disparate organisations. We have in Victoria we have the JCCV as well, the Jewish Community Council of Victoria, and both organisations are more than likely to come out with statements on political issues about Israel and about the Jewish community.
And I respect their opinions and their statements, very, very often support their statements. My point is, though, that will the non-Jewish community recognise who they are and what they stand for?